Okay, so here we are on turn 4, which is a winter turn. Winter is covered not just, as I mentioned in the last video, by the supply rules that involve it, but also if you look here, there's a small number of action rounds here, only 5 during the bad weather we've kind of decreased, even though we still have the political deck. Let's see, we're still a good 2 cards over as long as we have that in place. So they've got kind of multiple tools to help control the amount of action that's going on. By limiting the number of action rounds, you're going to make it less likely that a lot's going to happen as well. Also have a new deck. It's 1919, and all the cards get shuffled together except for, of course, the ones that have been removed. And let's see what else. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention. Yeah, so our doctor came back with at least a couple of the things that he pointed out about the combat system. And, well, either I can't read his response on Board Game Geek any better than I can read the rules, or yes, I do understand it completely. What he was going on about was that I made a couple little mistakes and therefore wasn't even playing this game. I'm not talking about mistakes in understanding of the rules in this case. I'm talking about because I was on camera doing things, I maybe neglected to take the extra casualty on a core or something like that, but I've done that correctly in a number of cases. I don't know that might have screwed up somewhere. I'm sure that's possible. Much more worrisome to me is all the chrome factors. Those I think I may well have made some errors in, but if I do, so basically if people tell me they want an instructional video that's better than that first one, I'll give them what I usually do. I'm not going to go into all the detail on the Chrome, but I'll go into the core system, which honestly, if you strip everything, it's not that bad a system. I mean, it's not that complex a system at core, from what I understand, of course. I may get an answer coming back saying, no, you seriously are not playing the game I designed, which is pretty much what he said. Whatever. I cannot find the game he designed then. If it comes down to piddly little mistakes like that, though, I am not worried about it. Okay, so now we're beginning to get into the phase where a lot of the political groups have already been fixed in. Even though there's all these points on things like Belarus and Ukraine, those aren't going to mean a damn thing, because they're locked in now that they've got troops on the board. So, the next, it may be less important to play your big cards for the political effect now. White sand is painful. They've got, in terms of choices, I keep getting Kolchak and Vandergalts. I don't like the idea of playing Kolchak because that'll lose me the checks. Of course, the checks are going to start having a chance of disappearing next turn. And I finally got, where is it? This faction reinforcements, which could increase the checks. I don't want to use that for them. So, although the problem is I've got cards I kind of want to hold until they can come to use, right? This one I may want to play. Allows me to shift Polish influence directly or get additional troops in Don or Kuban. I think I need the troops right now, so I'm going to put that aside. I feel like these supports are valuable to me for the simple fact that I don't want to I'm going to need troops somewhere. I'm going to need forces that I can activate, and these seem to be my only options. So I'm going to put them aside. Kolchak's coup. I'm going to want this. I may not want to play it this turn because of the effect on the Czechs and on the possible, on this revolutionary army here. I'm going to put this aside. Faction reinforcements. Okay, this is the one I was looking at. RBF, BEF 1 and 2. See Britain faction. If conditions met, place in any friendly port. Baltics, Kuban. So let's see if we have that here. That's 28. Makes possible. Suppose I'm going to have to look in the faction rules, but I may want to play this card. Very likely here. If I don't, maybe I do want to hold on to this. These are both intriguing cards. The Green Uprising, that can really interfere, although I screwed up with it last time, but that can really interfere with Red's back end and maybe cut their supply on an attack somewhere. And then the Infiltration card, always useful because it's this option. Well, I've got to find one card that I'm willing to put over there because I can use the bluff and initiative for others. Let me look up the Brits and see what I'm going to get from them, because maybe this is going to go in there as a big point card. So that looks like the option I'm looking at here. White AC-28 has the following conditions. White control of the Transcaucasus. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Ukraine under white control or influence. Yeah, that's not going to happen. White controls all VCs in Don and Kuban in play of white AC number 27 to get away with that. So essentially, this is way out of line. I'm never going to get to play this for that, or certainly not before, not in a fashion that I want to even hold the card for. So this is a real possibility, well, almost a guarantee that's going to go in there. So now my others, basically I have 5 cards that I can hold in my hand. One's an interrupt card, and one's a card that I want to hold probably for next turn, the Kolchak Revolt, maybe longer. This will be the first time I'm holding a card. So I've got this, and then I've got the Influence and Bluff. And the question here is how I want to do this. I'm going to put the Bluff over in the reds. I'm going to put this in the whites because I need help. I don't think red help is going to be that tremendous for them. And then for the Influence card, I'll throw that in here with hope of gaining control of those decisions. And maybe I can help swing Poland further than I would be able to with the other choices that I have. As it is, that's probably my biggest worry right now, is how do I get Poland into this war? My biggest bright spot is the Baltics, which look like they have an exposed Belarus here. An interruption into the Baltics may well help me get Poland in, from what I can understand. I'm not going to, look too carefully at the rules, obviously. All right, so let's resolve these. Okay, so the main event, or the main effect of all of this ended up one of those, both people put 5s in, so 3 cards, no control, no idea what's going to happen. Red got to pick 2 though, 8 to anti-Bolsheviks and red self-determination policy. One of the neat things, this happens in Days of Decision too, is certain powers become sort of locked in this. In Days of Decision, it's once they're in the war, or if I recall correctly. It's been a long, long time since I played that. But as you knock things off your checklist, cards become all good, perhaps, for you. Or maybe not. But in this case, for example, a big penalty on this card, 2 white for Finland, and then also Central Powers, 1 towards white. Well, that's gone. Of course, the advantages, well, the big advantage here for me at this point is just Lithuania. That's all I'm getting out of it. And self-determination. Again, I'm trying to keep Lithuania out of the war because they're a danger to Belarus at this point. As it stands, things are ugly. But if Lithuania comes in, I think with Lithuania and Latvia, there's a special additional force that comes into play. I don't know what these are going to be. I probably shouldn't. Yeah, no, there's no random over there. Ukrainian People's Republic. These were all random. Okay, so this was selected by red, so they get 2 replacement steps for this. And then they're going to get their bonus replacements off of, Jesus, I don't remember what. Turkestan, maybe Ukraine. They get 1 for each Ukrainian victory city. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, actually. I thought there were only 3 a moment ago, or last night. So I think they're getting 5 additional replacements from that as well. So they're up to like 7. They don't have to buy replacement points, so they can act all over the board, basically. Potatoes and guns. If white controls Britain, France, and the USA, they do not. And the Ghost of Kerensky. Well, we'll see what these major effects are out of lining these up and converting them over there. Most of the powers are kind of locked in already. You know, like this. I shouldn't even have the IPs on it, but I'll clean those up. The big effect was really Lithuania, Poland. These things all stayed where they were. France. The big effect was that the West Ukraine has moved into play. Now, political prerequisite, political phase, white AC-15. I think I've played that. Yes, I have. So I'm allowed to get them. And I'm going to get these forces, I guess, which comes out to 3 armies, 2 corps, and a leader. That sounds like, oh yeah, there we go. I don't know. Let's see. But here's the problem. I gotta find the leader. Here's the problem with this. The Ukraine, I thought, was everything. And now the Western Ukraine is apparently not. I mean, Western Ukraine is going to... I think this is the dividing line between them, I guess. So this shouldn't have been here. I'll put this over in Kiev in order to balance things, and then I guess I couldn't have set up there. West Ukraine's its own territory. See if I can find additional rules, because there seem to be depends on red AC-37 or how a side gets control. All right, well, I guess we have to look in the rule in the supplement to find out how that's going to be set up. Here's the variable setup. First of all, there's 2 leaders because one of them is one of these NC leaders that aren't really defined terribly well in the rules, but they just kind of, hey, you can add them. Well, nobody's going to buy a faction leader, so I've been throwing these in when they come under control, just like even though they just say V on them, which means you have no idea how you get it. If they had a C on them, they would mean that they come in at this point. But okay, so under the setup, armies are set up within its region. The corps may start on the map in the strategic reserve. The West Ukrainian Army 3 and the leader, well, let's say all leaders, are only set up if one side declared war on West Ukraine or West Ukraine became controlled through red card number 37. Neither of those are the case, so I guess they will not show up in the game ever, probably. However, these guys provide an interesting additional threat on the Ukraine. I think I'm going to be able to force red into the Ukraine and or Belarus. And by doing it, just because there are not enough forces on the borders here, although the Ukraine could actually turn its will westward. It's set up eastward to face the whites down in the Caucasus. Well, in the Caucasus, but they might be my best choice for defending this general area, to keep the Red Russians out of there, to keep Poland from joining. Now, if Poland joins the war, the West Ukraine immediately goes on the other side. It's kind of funky, if you ask me. Oops. I think I want both these corps over in, not in the dead box, over here to take losses on in the strategic reserve. I generally try to keep a couple of corps in there if possible. Anything else here that looks interesting? Sounds like it. All right. Well, now we go to the rounds. A viewer pointed out one major error I'm making in the core system, which is when I move, when I'm doing movement and combat activations, I can't actually move to, I can move through but not to a space which is designated for combat. That's a little weird. That I know most of the system was lifted from Paths of Glory. The reason that I find that odd is this was such a fluid war, to my understanding, that it didn't really, the forces were small enough, largely, that it didn't really break down, for the most part, into, your trench warfare, where you really had to set up and establish a front, and then, even as it is, I've always been a little bit concerned about I have to move to a space I control to attack. Even in World War I would be iffy, and I don't remember Paths of Glory well enough, but whether it had the, you can't move to a space that you're attacking from. You would funnel reinforcements into an attack zone at the time of the attack, and that was actually, a big factor in a lot of the battles, was how much could you push into there. Now, some of that is going to be represented by this strategic reserve, which I don't have a real good grasp on. Not the rules so much as, although it's been pointed out that there was an issue. I wonder why this is here. Did I forget one of these? Shit. I'm worried that I forgot to add this one in. That's very suspicious. But even the control factor in this feels a little less fluid than I'd expect a Russian Civil War game to be, with its, broad moves back and forth, etc. And in fact, outside of entrenchment, I would say the early stages of World War I and some of the Eastern campaigns, and where the great breakthroughs occurred, like in the Kaiserslaut, you saw such fast and rapid movement that wouldn't even apply very well. Now, with the entrenchment rules in Paths of Glory, you can kind of say, well, the units aren't able to entrench in time to stop the attack. But here, it feels, I don't know, it feels somewhat artificial to me. Just maybe it works, I don't know. But I've been kind of okay with my more rapid breakthroughs, even if maybe it allows the pendulum to swing a little faster than it should, maybe. I'm not sure. Figure out whether or not this card was a selected one. Would it have been selected? Yeah, it would have been selected by white, and it seems unlikely, although it has a big movement for Lithuania. But it's possible that it blew in the wind. The other choice would have been this one, which white certainly wouldn't have played. So yeah, I'm gonna modify this a little bit, give myself one more space on Lithuania. Poland isn't affected. West Ukraine, I don't remember. I'm gonna let that sit as it is, but I'll move forward for France, overall helping the white player a little bit, because he definitely needs it here. my initial thinking is, okay, with the whites, you don't want to do any combat. It's winter time. There's penalties to combat, if I can recall what they are. Having real trouble playing something like this in my normal disjointed fashion, which definitely makes things even harder. Seasonal something, I saw it. There it is. I'm really having trouble focusing, which is one of the big problems here. 10.4, 11.18. Limited supply, great. And I move a space less. 11 point something. I think it was 1.8, but I'm not sure. That doesn't look possible. Yeah, that's what it says. But it also says it's on 19. That can't be right. Here it is. Winter. 11.881. They've got it reversed? No. I just can't read. That's the problem here. Like I said, I'm having real trouble focusing on anything. It's like my brain's not working right. Attacking units in limited supply take a negative shift 1 to the left. And that's what I knew about. I forgot about the movement roll. Anyway, my thought was then, okay, I don't even necessarily want to move, but then I look and I say, well, I could get down towards Orsk. I don't want to lose that, but I have definite problems if I can't defend that. And I'm not sure why I don't have a garrison there, but okay. I was supposed to build one last turn. I guess I ended up building something else. Did I build this there? I don't know. I can't tell. Anyway, I must have forgotten to take replacement points there that I intended. Leaving that open, so now the best I can do is move that core into play. Then when I started thinking about that, I started thinking about, geez, you know, I could maybe actually take St. Petersburg, but I don't think I can do that. Not a matter of it would be illegal, but a matter of the Belarus unit could then move up and drop a supply problem for me. So then I'm kind of looking at, well, what if I position myself here? I've got some good units here, the Latvians, that could knock out Belarus completely. And I don't know. I don't know if that's what I want to do yet. I know there's subjugation rules, but I think only red can subjugate things, but I don't know if Belarus can be knocked out of the game that easily. If it can, it's probably a worthwhile task. The problem there, though, is, well, now I'm open. My supply lines don't exist. I could be cut off there, and that would be troublesome, too. So just really painful kinds of decision-making that you have to make throughout this game. Okay, so there's two sides of this. Presuming what I'm not sure is if declaration of war is something that's superfluous in this circumstance. Do I have to declare war to actually interact with this thing? I haven't been playing that way or thinking that way. Once it's controlled, it looks like you still have to actually declare war. You can do that during one of your action rounds, but not the last round. And if you do it, it gives you the option to conquer the thing. And then it becomes kind of yours, it looks like, because the territory is friendly, but you can also rebuild the conquered target's units. And red has a different option. which is this subjugation, which allows them to actually remove the faction from the game, get red garrison units. Which are specific to the faction. Well, I got subjugation units, but those don't appear to be specific to the factions in any sense of the word. Huh. Got things like this, which may be what they're talking about. I see if some of these are in the Comrade's Guide stuff. Doesn't look like it. Because those wouldn't be covered in the rules. So, damned if I know. So I'm lost again on this and have to probably step back and try to learn these rules too. So we'll see. Now, it looks like a state of war does exist if you have control of the faction. So I'm at war officially with Belarus, I guess, with the whites. Just trying to see if there's some effect that would happen with me declaring war on them, like if I have to do that. What's bugging me here is I'm looking for rules. I remember something that my memory was, if there are forces on the map for the faction, you can't move the marker out of the box. But there's an example here, and I can't find that right now, but there's an example here under faction control loss, veto of faction control loss. White controls Britain. During the political phase, influence points push Britain out of white control into white influence. Well, if white controls Britain, Britain's troops have landed on the board already. I guess if I'm recalling this correctly, but I'm looking for the rule to see if I can find it. Of course, finding anything in this game is impossible for me. Some of that may be my mental state right now. But if some of my mental state is because of the game. If Britain can't be moved because it's got troops on the board, then the only case could be if you wipe out all the British troops, then maybe you can move the faction control marker again. I'm trying to find what this is. Whether I can find what led me to believe that, because I can't find it in the faction rules, and I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure I can find it right now. All right. Thinking is that I'm misremembering this rule here. No republic or country's FCM moves during a turn if the associated faction's territory is occupied by at least one army of the controlling side, including any controlled faction army. That sounds like it would give me that idea now. Any army of the controlling side, well, there's no territory for the Brits or the French or whatever in that case that they own. So they wouldn't be able to reach that space. So that's not what I thought about it. But yeah, of the controlling side, including any controlled faction army. So as long as I keep an army in the territories, that faction's not going to move. But that's, that would make Astrakhan free now. So I'm going to look to see if there's some other rule that led me to believe that. I don't see it so far in this section, but I'm basically going to have to reread the rules again. That's essentially how I can find something in this game, is I have to continually reread the entire rule set each time I have a question. As far as I can tell, these factions without any control, without any territory of their own, should be flipped over because they will not, they can be unactivated essentially by, or inactivated through the political process. Ah, well. I mean, I've made enough mistakes in this game. I can write off another one. It's just I was certain I saw that, but it seems to just have to do with if there are forces, armies of the controlling player in the territory, then it can't be converted. If it ends up becoming uncontrolled and there are forces other than that faction in that territory, they have to kind of withdraw. And Finland's a special case because it's at war at the beginning, so it doesn't, I would guess it doesn't really apply the same way. I don't know if there's any specifics about that there. Yep. Even if armies occupying Finland until Finland enters a control box. Okay, so Finland is fixed at this point because it's entered a control box. But I don't remember what I was thinking. My mental state was not adequate for handling this game. Alright. I don't know where the hell I am. I'm trying to figure out what to do with white. Well, after a humongous amount of agonizing, I played this, which is kind of what I had decided on, and moved through these yucky terrain up to Omsk with both my corps. I'm hoping I can move there through winter. I was here 1, 2, one of them couldn't make it all the way. Yeah. I want to be here because I don't want to get cut off terribly. Now this frees up these red units, but this is as far as I could get on 2 moves. And that's making the die rolls for the bad terrain. That puts it to red, and that was, I spent like, I don't know, a break, but also probably a total of about 40 minutes trying to decide on that card play. This is why you don't want to play games with me that have real decision making like this, and I just can't face them sometimes. The Russians aren't sure what to do, but they wanted to play this sucker. It's a big 5-point card they're throwing away for the event, and it's a one-use event. I wouldn't have done this in the earlier turns because it depletes it from the deck, but now we're onto the big deck. Hand and card management's a lot less important. I don't know if I'm going to even run through that, and if I do, there's no guarantees I'll get this back. So, the big effect of this, it prevents things from going into control for this turn and for the next political phase, except if there's a declaration of war. But the big reason I'm doing this is no space containing white controlled factions can be activated this turn. Whether or not white was going to launch an attack with their factions over here, Latvia, Estonia, or possibly the Czechs, is up to debate. But the Russians don't want it happening. They kind of feel like they escaped a bullet by, say, the Latvians not moving down anyway into position. Not that they could have attacked right away. But this is a good assurance and some protection for them. And we'll move forward. I had forgotten to pull my chits. Don Cossacks are frozen again. And over here we got this mutiny. And that seems to have no effect because the one card that affects it has already been played and is out of play. So they're getting away cheap there with the red infighting this turn. Alright, that puts us on a white action. The whites bring in some additional reinforcements down here in the south. The reds activate a lot of their provincial forces, the Ukrainians moving here into the Crimea and into the Kuban, setting up for a massive assault, essentially, Sevastopol. I also am set up to attack Orsk. This is really kind of the beginning of the end here, I think, in terms of having frozen these. Now I can take out the problems here and then send forces up to deal with the Baltic states, potentially. Since these aren't actually red troops, I think they don't affect Poland, so that's kind of cool. Well, as white is collapsing, their options are just decreasing. Not having protected this, that fell. Sevastopol fell. Some casualties. A couple points were done there because the pluses for the city brought it up. And the shifts against reduced the total damage, but that wasn't a big deal. I've got so many forces here. I wanted to keep Makhno alive because he's so mobile. I'm able to kind of cut apart the I own this too. The opposing forces, as it were, just slice quite far into territory. It's still, very difficult for me to make a decision on what to do, and it becomes harder and harder as there are no good decisions left. So I don't remember what the whites did. They threw support for Goltz, for von der Goltz, to get themselves some replacement points up there, which they can't do again now for this this round. It's just, there are no good choices right now. Now, the problem is I can't quite throw the towel in because I know there's a point during the revolution where white gets flung back and then is able to make more ground up. And I don't know if we're in that flung back, but maybe a lot of ground will be made up based on the Poland situation. I just don't see Poland coming in as long as I'm able to use the Reds to gain the advantages. And to tell you the truth, the Reds, to use the factional forces rather than the Reds to gain advantages on Estonia and Latvia. Tell you the truth, that's not even necessary. I can play a defensive game here. Right now I'm gathering, let's see, I'm at... I'm going to be pulling about 20 victory points here, no? No, 13. 13 victory points, it looks like, unless I screwed up and moved the victory point marker instead of the city marker. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 17, 18, 19. I'm only counting 19 stones right now. Oh, there's a 20th one. So yeah, 13 victory points. I've already got 10. 2 more turns, I get the win without having to do anything except hold what I've got. And I should be able to do better than that, to tell you the truth. Well, the whites succeeded in doing little or nothing here. Let's see, they played support for Yudenich in hopes that that'll somehow magically help them later in the game. The Reds played... This kind of cool card would have brought more reinforcements in, but they decided to use it for activations because of the danger of the peasant army revolt. I don't really need troops right now. So they launched attacks all over the place. Finished Mannerheim up here. I don't think he can retreat. I don't want to look it up. So that was a victory point for that. The idea of trying to figure out whether or not he could retreat via a port. He's got no land he could retreat from there. Because there are no land connections coming out of there. And let's see, Makhno came flying out, and this is a lot harder to get out of than it looks. Planning on heading up into the Latvia area, help defend Belarus. This card has really helped to prevent the Baltic states from overspilling. And then a massive attack here by Trotsky, all the losses taken on the Ukrainians. Another white city goes over, which means influence points, more replacement points. I don't know if I'm allowed to go to 10, but I'm going to assume I am. I just flipped it over. It says restricted on the other side. That I don't know what that means, but that doesn't apply to this. However, that means I'm out of cards for the Reds, so they have to take a free action for their next action. I may try a propaganda. You know what I should have done, actually? I should have taken a casualties on Trotsky instead. That was 6 casualties I had to take. If he takes 4, 5, 6, I can use his special action to repair all those units next turn. And that's a lot of points, basically, that I get off of using his special action, if I understand things correctly. I don't know, let's see, do we have a Trotsky? We got a bunch of Trotsky rolls here. 14, 24, and 25, that's, I think, the page number. It's got to be over on 14. It's not in the leader's rules, it's in the special actions. He's only got a 50-50 chance of doing it, and not on Stalin camp units, which he has with him. You know what, I'm just going to take the hits on the Ukrainians. They get their own replacement points, I think. They can recover them. They're not going to be vital to my further marches forward. Forgot the bonus for the elite unit. There should have been a +1 die roll modifier, but that wouldn't have had an effect. Great. Alright, well, white's got a card left to play. I don't want to play the Kolchak. I intend to play that. I may play this for the diplomatic initiative. Just that's not an action, though, so I get to take a free action somewhere. I'm not sure what I want to do. Really hard time figuring out anything I want to do ever. Not just in the game, either. Anyway, let's see. White, through their infiltration card, the initiative card, grab some more replacements instead of trying to do a special action. And then red did a special action. I couldn't figure out anything that I really wanted to do, so I just moved back now again, threw him up further. Now we come to some other point in the turn. And I really don't think, I mean, if I knew the game better, I could call it, probably. But I really don't think that there's any chance for white at this point to do anything. Beginning to get some feel for the rolls, but I'm also kind of getting grumpy about stuff that has nothing to do with anything other than the kind of decisions of this type of game are very tough on me sometimes. And I'm just not in the mood today. Okay, but I got to get it out of the way and start something else. These are not easy to play, solitaire or otherwise, for me, at least right now in my life. Let's see. So I don't know if I have anybody. I think this guy's out of supply, so he dies permanently, and that brings the hexes into play. I don't know if anybody else has problems like that. I think the rest of the lines are all pretty solidly held. Nothing got conquered. There's no subjugation. We get our big victory point bonus here, which we're at, it looks like 21 minus 6 is 15 victory points. And that puts us up to 25, which means at the end of this next turn, it should be over. Gonna get that in the baggie. We don't have an automatic victory yet. And then I gotta spend the replacement points. You know, I think I can just call it here. I don't see much point in continuing at this stage. Even if white gets a big surge like Poland coming in or something, they're not going to make up the victory point, the victory city difference that's in play. And I don't see putting myself through a miserable status for a situation that I'm not really enjoying, where I've damaged the game so much with bad strategy as well as rules mistakes. I I can't even get my videos to fucking end up on in the right order. Apparently, that's happened before. I pull everything over from the camera, and God knows why it ends up in the wrong order. All right, yeah, let's just wrap this up, and well, I'll come back with a few words about my feelings about it, but I don't know how much value they are at all.